Hey everyone, I know this video comes on the back of some pretty hard news this morning from the New South Wales government of 4 more weeks of lockdown. I just want to acknowledge that that's really hard, and if you're feeling rough, if you're feeling foggy, confused, whatever it is, I know I've been feeling a whole jumble of different emotions that I need to be processing. I just really want to encourage you to reach out to someone. I'd love to chat to you. I'd love to have a phone call. I'm sure Larry would too. I'm sure the other pastors. We've got a whole bunch of pastoral care people around that would just love to have a chat. So please reach out, send us a message somehow, and stay in touch. Today's video, I wanted to kind of carry on with what we talked about last week, or what I talked about last week, and picking up on this idea of 3 things to do in a season like this. First one was, how is God talking to you? To stop and reflect on that, to think about what is God saying to you. And then number 3, who's someone you can share that with? So how is God talking to you? What's he saying to you? And who's someone you can share that with? Because I think in a winter season like this kind of church season that we were in, where we're kind of slowing everything down, where there's a lot of waiting, things are kind of slower and kind of feels like winter a little bit. I think it's really good to buckle in and reevaluate what's important to us and reconnect with God in meaningful ways and stay attached to him. So I think doing these 3 things really helps me, and I hope it helps you as well. I'd love to hear how that's been going. So I wanted to share 2 things of how God's been talking to me and what's he been saying. And then I guess I'm doing the 3rd thing by sharing that with you guys. Cool. So the 2 things that I want to share is one, stuff that I've been learning through my study course. I'm doing a graduate diploma in counseling. And number 2 is just learning from people, having conversations with them. So let me get straight into it. Number 1, through my study course, I'm learning about different types of psychotherapies. I know that's a big, complicated word, but basically just different ideas or ways that research shows that people think and how we can help people process stuff and different ways of doing things that is helpful, basically, when we're talking and processing emotions and all this kind of stuff. A specific therapy that I've been looking at lately is called REBT. I won't get into all the technical stuff, but essentially the whole big idea of this therapy is that our beliefs affect our emotions more than our circumstances do. Does that make sense? Our beliefs affect our emotions more than our circumstances do. And let me give you an example straight away. Let's talk about divorce for a second. A lot of people get divorced and that leads to depression, and it's a terrible thing for them. But then some people get divorced and they feel happier. It's the belief about the thing that's happening that really affects if they feel good or bad. Christians might feel guilty or, I don't know, all kinds of different things. But other people might feel like, oh, I'm free, finally done with that relationship. It's the belief about the circumstances. The similar kind of thing is having a baby. For me and Alana, we were so excited to hear that we're having a baby. But for others, it's scary. Everything's changing. What's going to happen next? There's uncertainty. Having a baby can be terrifying. It's our beliefs about the circumstances that kind of creates the emotional response going on in us. So, with that kind of framework, I wonder if you can identify where your emotions have been coming from lately. How have you been feeling? That's first of all just a great question. But then can you identify, obviously a lot of the circumstances is COVID, but what's the belief about COVID that's creating a lot of those emotions? I wonder if that's an interesting thing for you to think through. And if that's really interesting, call me, let's have a chat, send me a message or something, because I'd love to talk about that idea with you more. Cool. That's number 1. I think God's teaching me a lot about my own emotions and different therapies that are interesting to explore that stuff. Number 2, people. So having a lot of phone calls lately, a lot of Zoom chats, and I've been really challenged by how much I need people, how much I need to be able to talk to them and process stuff with them. Especially when we talk about that last thing of REBT, the whole emotional belief stuff. To be able to process that with another human is so valuable. It's just been like an absolute blessing to me. I so often get stuck or I feel a certain way and it just gets foggy and confusing, and just being able to talk to another human is such a joy. So in the season where it's hard to talk face to face, there's a lot of us out here who would love to have a phone call with you. I said earlier, maybe it's Larry, maybe it's someone else, but just send us a message and we'd love to have a chat. going through and processing and understanding our emotions are really hard, but having another person, especially someone who's good at that stuff, is a real blessing. So give it a try. Do you need other people in this season, and are you willing to reach out and get a hand? Cool. So those are the two things God's been talking to me about, and hopefully they're interesting and challenging to you. And yeah, as always, seriously, we'd love to hear from you. Cool. Thanks, church.